Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. Today, we're going to talk about one of my most favorite parts of the world and one of my favorite favorite ways to see it. We have with us Michele Wilkinson. She is our business development manager for Mayflower Cruises and Tours. She covers both aspects of the leisure travel business, and she's a good source of information and supplier for us for river cruises. Today we're going to talk about tours, and more specifically we're going to talk about rail and Canada and North American rail that I think you're going to find really interesting, especially with some of the features and things that are available to you. So without further ado, Michele, take it away.
Wait just a minute. I'm going to say something quickly. We need for all of you all, if you have questions while Michele is talking, just please click on the chat feature and type in your questions, and we'll be glad to get answers for you during this session. So now I'm going to turn it over to Michele and let her roll with it.
Well, thank you, Charlie and Sherrie. I am so excited about talking to you guys today because, as Charlie and Sherrie and I were talking before y'all came on, we have a new normal in our industry, right? Travel is a changing, and we've got to learn to change with it. And one of the biggest things that I've noticed in talking to not only travelers, but other group leaders and people that book the travel for you is the change in where you're looking to go. People are saying, well, I may not travel this year, but I'm definitely, that pent-up energy, I'm going to want to go somewhere next year, but maybe I want to stay closer to home. And so Charlie and Sherrie and I were talking about some of the great opportunities we have right here in the United States of America. Because as the name Mayflower says, cruises and tours, and as Charlie mentioned, river cruising is a huge part of what we do. We're actually owned by a river cruise company. But we recognize that people are looking for unique, interesting travel right here at home. And as Charlie mentioned, rails, what I like to call rails and sails, are two big things that people are looking for here, something a little bit more unique. And that's why I wanted to call this Unique North America. We're not just talking about getting on a motor coach and driving. We're getting on a motor coach to drive, but also getting off that motor coach to explore. And through some of the unique historic rail experiences, as well as getting right on the water on some of the really awesome boat tours that we have through the United States. So just what I'm going to do first, though, is give you what I call the 10-second tour of Mayflower, because people say, well, I don't know that I've heard of Mayflower. And we're all, and there's other companies like ours, and we're all just another avenue for Sherrie and Charlie and the agents in the office to book your experiences. We were actually founded in 1979, and our headquarters is just outside of Chicago in Lisle, Illinois. Started out as a small tour company doing motor coach tours throughout the United States. We graduated into air tours, then started going internationally, and eventually, again, going into river cruising. So we've been around for over 40 years, but started really in North America, doing North America sightseeing tours. So we've kind of come full circle in this day and age when people want to do more of sightseeing right here in the United States. Now I could go into the whole spiel of who we are and what consortiums we belong to, but the main thing you want to know is that we are a sound company. We are a member of USTOA, which is the United States Tour Operator Association, which means we have to put up $1 million just to cover it in case, God forbid, anything ever happened to our company. You all are covered. But we also belong to the American Bus Association and the Travel Agent Association and the Cruise Lines Association. So we have not some company that just started a year ago. We've been around a long time, and I can tell you right now, Charlie and Sherrie wouldn't be working with us if we weren't. We are here to stay. Now, all of our tours, we like to call kind of all-inclusive in that we offer your deluxe transportation, be it by motor coach, be it by air to get to your destination, and we handle everything while you're on the tour. So yeah, you got to get your bag packed. We're not going to pack it for you. But once we get to that destination, once you arrive in Boston or arrive in Washington, we're going to help you get your bags. And from then on, getting them in and out of your hotel rooms and things like that are always going to be included for you. We're always going to have a Mayflower tour manager with you on every one of your tours. So this isn't a situation where you get on a plane and go, okay, what am I going to do for 8 days? We're going to take care of that. We're going to have a Mayflower tour manager that meets you when you arrive in your destination to make sure that they are with you, to handle the hotel arrangements, to make sure your tickets are for all your attractions are bought, to make sure that you are taken care of on your entire trip. You're not just out there alone. You are on a tour, a guided tour, every step of the way. In some destinations, we're going to have local guides and historians, the people that are from the area and know the area, whether it's on board the train or whether it's a narrated guide who talks to you while you're on that boat cruise and explains the lake that you're on and the scenery. We're going to make sure that you know everything about the destination. Again, it's part of being on a tour and not just on a trip. We include some great unique dining experiences, things that you might not be able to do on your own, but we also give you free time. So you're not going to be in a group dinner every single night, because some of these places have some unique restaurants, and we want you to be able to experience those on your own. Likewise, some great accommodations. While some of them might be smaller hotels based on the area that you're in not having large accommodations, to others being really unique, like the Mohegan Sun, casino resort. Got some really great places for you to stay, and that's what's important as well. You're never going to be staying in budget inns along the way. We're always going to have top accommodations for you on your tour. Another great thing that I always like to mention is how we take care of our single travelers. We're finding more and more people are traveling by themselves, and they're saying, well, you know what, I'm by myself, but I want to be part of a group so I don't feel like I'm alone on the road. And our Guaranteed Share program is one way that we make that available to you. We recognize as a single traveler, or what we call a solo traveler, you might be more comfortable in your own room, doing your own thing, and that's fine. We offer a single supplement that would cover the cost of your room to be a single traveler. But if you say, hey gosh, I don't mind traveling with somebody else, find me a roommate, I'll share my room if I don't have to pay the single supplement, then we will find you a travel companion, someone to room with on your trip. Now that person's always going to be same gender, because we're not doing, listen guys are going to get guys, girls are going to get girls, but it's going to be same gender, it's going to be non-smoking, and it's just someone to share that accommodation. The accommodation is the reason for the single supplement. So that is, one thing that we have to pass along if you're a single traveler. But with our Guaranteed Share, we room you up, and then you don't have to pay that single supplement. Again, it's up to you. You don't have to do the Guaranteed Share program, but you can do it if you'd like to. Gives you someone to travel with and saves you a bit of money, okay? The other nice thing is if you sign up and you say, look, I don't mind sharing, give me another single traveler to room with, and then we can't find you someone because there isn't another person on the program, we give you the room to yourself and we don't penalize you. You do not have to pay the single supplement if you sign up to be a Gear Share and we can't find your roommate. It's a great way to go. So something to keep in mind that's always available on all of our tour programs. We also do want to make available to you our traveler protection plan. Now, we've got one through our company that you can sign up for when you book and deposit, but Sherrie and Charlie certainly have some great travel companies that they work with, and they're going to steer you in the right direction to say, hey, we highly recommend travel insurance, and this is what we recommend to you. Doesn't matter how you do it, but it is definitely something I want to make sure that you are aware that is a good thing to purchase. And you can talk to Charlie and Sherrie more about that when you do book your trip, okay? And then finally, I'm gonna offer you a great travel savings on the programs today. One of them especially has a great travel savings. So we're gonna talk about that further down the road. All right, so the first one I'm gonna talk about today is a summer departure next July, and this is to beautiful Montana and Glacier National Park. This is an 8-day tour, so 7 nights. It includes 12 meals, while on this tour. And you'll see here just an overview of where we're going to be going. So we'll be flying into Spokane, Washington. We'll be traveling through Idaho before we finally end with the bulk of our tour being in the beautiful state, whoops, flipped ahead there, of Montana. You'll also notice that we do cross into Canada because we want to go to Waterton Park. So you will need a passport or a passport card to go on this tour. Okay, so that's something that obviously we can talk about at a later time, and you can talk about with Sherrie and Charlie as the differences between a passport and a passport card. But I do get asked that question a lot. Because you're not flying into Canada, you're only going to be driving into Canada. A passport card will work over a passport if that is something you have. Okay, as you can see through the tour, we're going to be staying, as I said, most of the time in Montana and making almost a big loop into what we do in our sightseeing here. So starting out, we'll be flying into the beautiful town of Spokane, Washington. And this is where we're going to spend the first night of our tour, is in Spokane. The nice thing is, once we arrive, we're going to give you some free time. So you can explore on your own, do a little sightseeing if we get in early enough, which, you know, again, we're going to be traveling through 2 time zones here. So we're going to always end up in Pacific time. We might get in quite a bit earlier than almost when you leave. So if we were to leave here at noon, you'd be arriving into Spokane at like 2 p.m. versus what we would consider to be 4 p.m. So you're going to have a little bit of free time in Spokane. And we don't have any scheduled activities the first day of arrival. And the main reason that we do that is because we never know with the airlines. You know, we'd love to believe that they all have their exact schedule and there's never going to be delays, or, you know, you're going to get in and have lots of time. But we always want to make sure that, God forbid, there's some type of a delay or we arrive late for some reason, that you're not missing out on any scheduled activities. So the first day, you're just going to be on your own, and you can go out and do some sightseeing on your own in Spokane. And we'll be meeting with our tour manager in the lobby in the early evening, just so that you can say hi to your tour manager, and she'll give you some great ideas for where you can go to dinner, because there's some great places within walking distance of our hotel, which is right in Spokane, where you can go out and have dinner on your own that first evening. Day 2 is when our touring really starts, and we're going to get up, we're going to check out of our hotel, and we'll head into Idaho. And we are going to stop in Wallace, Idaho. And Wallace is one of those really unique towns where the entire town is actually listed on the National Register of Historic Places. This town has got some beautiful historic places to see. So we're going to spend a little bit of time in this great town where you can do a little bit of sightseeing in the town of Wallace, Idaho. And then we're going to continue on into Montana, and we're going to travel along the beautiful Flathead Lake to get into our first full overnight, which is going to be in Kalispell. Now, what's interesting is we are going to be in Flathead Lake area at the beginning of our tour and the end of our tour, but we're traveling home out of Montana. So people might say, why are we back around at Flathead Lake at the end of our tour? And that is because Flathead Lake is 28 miles long, north to south. So when we're traveling along Flathead Lake on our drive into Montana, we're going to be traveling along the northern part of the lake. Whereas at the end of the tour, we're going to be actually doing a boat cruise more on the south part of Flathead Lake. So we're going to see it from 2 different angles. So we will be traveling a little bit along Flathead Lake on this first full day of travel as we arrive into Kalispell, Montana. Now we'll overnight here, and we'll actually have kind of our welcome dinner then on that first full night in Montana, because that's when everyone will be together. Okay. The next day, which is day 3 of our tour, is when we are really going to spend the day at Glacier National Park. Of course, Glacier National Park was founded in 1910, and it is really, and I think probably Sherrie and Charlie, I think they're muted, but I know that they've been, I'm sure, to Glacier National Park on their travels. I don't know that there's many places they haven't been. Oh, Sherry's shaking your head, no. Oh, wow. Okay, well, then this is a great experience for you. It is really one of the most historic national parks or lakes on a national park in the United States of America. It is full of mountain ranges, again, carved out from the early 1900s when it was officially founded, but it was carved out way before that. And it is one of the most historic national parks that we have in the upper Pacific Northwest. Now, one of the great things to do here in the national park is what they call the Going to the Sun Road. And the Going to the Sun Road is known as the photographer's paradise. And the most iconic way to see national park is through these red buses called the jammers. And a lot of you may have heard of what they call the jammers. Jammers are now named because of the style of this car that they're on. These buses were built back when everybody had the standard transmission in the buses. So they were constantly doing the shifting and what they called the jamming of the gears. And you can kind of hear that iconic sound because as they climbed up the steep roads, they had to really jam those gears in to get up those steep roads. Hence the name, the jammers. So we will all get into these jammer style cars and we will go up these rugged mountain roads via these jammers. And it's really an iconic way to travel through Glacier National Park. Okay. This evening we'll have another dinner included and kind of round out our day at Glacier National Park. Now the next day we're going to travel north. This is when we will go through into Canada and we're going to go to the Waterton Glacier International Peace Park. And this is where we're going to do one of our beautiful boat cruises right on this iconic lake. Upper Waterton Lake, again, in Canada itself, is really known for its beautiful wilderness that surrounds the lake. It's very rugged wilderness in and around it. And we will take a beautiful boat cruise up on Upperton Waterton Lake. Then we're going to go down and we're going to visit the Prince of Wales Hotel. Now, the Prince of Wales Hotel was actually built and opened in July of 1927. It is considered one of the most photographed hotels in the world. And it was actually named the Prince of Wales Hotel because they found out that the Prince of Wales at the time was going to be visiting the area and they thought they could entice him to come and stay at their hotel if they named the hotel after him. Well, he came, he visited, but he did not actually stay at the hotel. He stayed at one of his properties nearby. Now, a lot of you may know the Prince of Wales at this time was King Edward VIII. He was the king that abdicated his throne to marry a divorcee and ended up passing the crown over to his brother, who became, of course, the father, who is the father of our current Prince Elizabeth. So Queen Elizabeth, rather. And so it's a very iconic hotel. And the nice thing is we're going to visit it. We're actually going to have lunch at this historic hotel. So we will have that while we're there. We're not going to stay here, but we will have lunch here at this hotel. Now, the next day we're going to travel into the area of Browning. And Browning is the headquarters of the Blackfeet Indians. This is one of the most well-known areas where they settled. And we're going to get a chance to see a little bit more about the history of the Blackfeet Indians by visiting the Museum of the Plains Indians. This is really where it's known for their artifacts and exhibits of the Indians of the Plainfeet Indians. And so we're going to get a really good look at these Indians through their museum. Now, this area is, of course, also known from Great Falls. And Great Falls is known as kind of the headquarters of the Lewis and Clark expeditions. Great Falls was an area where they founded one of their expeditions. Of course, this was back in 1805. And so this is the headquarters of the Lewis and Clark Interpretive Center. And this is where we really learn a lot about their particular adventures and where they founded this area back in the 1800s. They actually spent about a month here in 1805, in the summer of 1805. And this is right on the Missouri River. And this is where we're going to be seeing their kind of where they viewed it. So much of this area hasn't changed in the over 200 years since they were in this area. So we're going to learn a little bit more about their journey while we're visiting this particular area. The next day, we're going to be visiting one of the areas that what they considered to be founding on the Missouri River, and this is the Gates of the Mountains. And we're going to take a boat journey through this area on the Gates of the Mountains. And if you kind of look into this point, you can't really, I don't know if you can really see it here, but this is what they call the gateway to the mountains. So the mountains come in from either side and form this little gateway into this area. And of course, we want to get in and see it up close and personal. So we'll be taking one of our boat journeys into this area on this lake and really get a chance to see along this Missouri River into the Gates of the Mountains. This area is halfway between Yellowstone and Glacier National Park. So it is a very neat area. It's over 1,200 feet high on either side, and really one of the more scenic areas to take some of the pictures of these beautiful mountains. So we're going to enjoy that beautiful boat cruise here. And then on our final full day of our tour, we're going into the area they call the National Bison Range. And this is home to almost somewhere between 400 and 500 American bison. And this is a natural area. We will not be doing anything crazy like getting out of the motor coach and getting up close and personal with the bison. If any of you have seen on the news recently, there have been some people that have gotten a little up close and personal or too up close, and we all know it's not safe. But we're going to be able to take some pictures and see this beautiful range. It is over 18,000 square acres on this buffalo range. And along with bison, it is also home to many elk, antelope, and the famous bighorn sheep. So we'll be able to get out and do some pictures and be able to see some of the beautiful animals on this 18,000 acre range of the National Bison Range. Okay? And this afternoon then, this last full afternoon, we will make it around back to the southern part of Flathead Lake. And this is when we're actually going to go on the lake itself. It's absolutely iconic. It's really a beautiful lake. And we will go out and take a boat cruise on Flathead Lake. Again, it is 28 miles long, and it was actually dredged by a glacier over 12,000 years ago. So we're going to get a chance to really get out and see this lake itself and spend some time doing a little bit of touring on our last day on a boat cruise. And then, of course, this evening after we check into our hotel, we'll get to Missoula, Montana, where we'll have our farewell dinner. And that's a great chance to be able to say goodbye to all of our traveling companions and just kind of, swap email addresses and change up pictures and really kind of round out the end of our tour before our flying home the last day. We'll be flying home out of the Missoula Airport. So there's a little bit of a smaller airport, but we'll be flying home out of Missoula Airport. Now, this trip is going in July of next year. And Sherrie and I were talking, and it's just a reminder, this is not the only travel date that we have this tour. We operate this tour in July and in August. And we do this really just in the summer. We don't do this tour in the spring and fall. But if the July date doesn't work for you, we have other dates available. I do know, however, that the July 18th date that we do have, and one of the reasons that we're promoting it, is this is what we call a guaranteed departure. We already know that this departure is going. It's not dependent on whether or not some people book or some people don't. We already have enough people going on this tour to make it a guaranteed departure. So you don't have to feel like, well, if I book it, what if I get all excited and it doesn't go? Because July 18th is the departure date that is going. So it is July 18th to the 25th. And the price that you see here does include the round trip air from Nashville. So $38.48 is your price, and that does include all of everything we've talked about today. The entrances to all the exhibits, all the boat cruises, the Jammer ride, the hotels, the airlines, the meals that we talked about that are included. So you don't have to worry about a lot of extras here, because pretty much, other than a few meals, everything is included in this particular cost. As I mentioned, if you are a single traveler and you do want your own room, you do need to add that $1,200 onto the cost of the tour. That is what the single supplement. But if you do choose the guaranteed share, you would just pay that $38.48. We are also running a special right now for our summer departures. and that is $100 per person off the cost of the tour. And that means if you book by the end of this month, you will save $100 off the cost. So that'll bring that cost down to $37.48 per person. Just something to think about. Again, if you want to look at adding on our travel insurance, whether you use ours or whether you do it through travel leaders, as I say, travel leaders, of course, we know that is also Just Cruisin Plus, then you could get the travel insurance through us. And then finally, just to mention that to hold space on a tour, to say we want to go, this is definitely a tour we want to be on, the deposit is only $200 per person. That holds your space on your tour, and your final payment is not due until next May. It's not due until 60 days prior to departure. So keep that in mind. It's not something you have to make payments along the way. You can if you want to, but it's just $200 to hold your space on the tour. Okay?
Michele, we've got a question.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
How many people are typically on this particular tour?
That is a great question. And Sherrie, thank you for reminding, because I have a note to mention. We normally take a maximum of 50 people on this tour. Now I say normal because we all know we've got a new normal, right? So normally in our regular time period, it would be about 50 people. However, one of the things that we are looking at, and it's a great segue into one of the things I was going to talk about at the end, but I'll talk about it now, is some of the things that we are doing for 2021 that might be changing in the industry. One of the things that we've always done is make sure that, at the end of every day, we go through the motor coach and you pick up your garbage and you clean the motor coach. Now, in this day and age, it's not just being cleaned up, but it's being disinfected before and after everybody gets on and off the motor coach. So at the end of the day, when everyone gets off the motor coach, that motor coach will be disinfected. The seats will all be wiped down. There will be fresheners going through. They have a lot of the motor coach companies and the ones we use are putting in new filter systems to filter the air better while they're on the motor coach, similar to what the airlines are doing. Everything is being cleaned and disinfected and wiped down. So that the motor coaches are clean before and after you get on board the motor coach. We also are looking at new policies that would instate that if you are a single traveler, you would, at this point, be on the motor coach seat by yourself. Normally we would have 50 people, which would mean if you're a single traveler, you might be sharing your motor coach seat with another traveler. But we're basically saying if you're not staying in the same room together, you're not sharing a motor coach seat together. So if you're a couple, then yes, you will sit next to each other on the motor coach. But if you are a single traveler, you will have that motor coach two-seat to yourself. At this point, we also are looking at masks being very much a part of our tours. Getting on and off the motor coach. While you're inside the motor coach, we ask that you keep your mask on. While you're in and out of the attractions, such as museums and things like that, we will have to honor whatever they require. I was actually, this last weekend, I did a little mini trip, and I was at the Titanic Museum in Gatlinburg, Tennessee, and we had to wear our masks the entire time. So most museums right now are requiring your masks to be on. They're not necessarily requiring it outside. So when you're, for instance, on a boat cruise and you are up on the upper deck and you're outside, most likely will not be required to wear your mask. But when you're in the enclosed spaces and on the motor coach, you will be wearing a mask. Okay?
One other quick question.
Absolutely.
We will have people that are not from Nashville that want to go. And
Yep.
So I know that there will be some price variation based on where they're located.
Correct.
What if somebody has their own what if they have frequent flyer miles that they want to use, for instance? Is there a deduction for that?
Yes, there is. We have a deduction on the price that we will take off based on them doing their own air. I don't have that in front of me right now. I want to say it's around $800, but please don't quote me yet. I will check on that for you and let you know what that exact amount would be. But yes, we do have a reduction in the price because the price is included with the air. The air is included in it. So yes, we would make an adjustment if somebody's flying out of another gateway. There might be a reduction or an increase in price. likewise, if they want to do their own air, they can definitely do that. We do have set parameter times. For instance, on the day of arrival, there's not really any set time that they have to be in by, which is, again, one of the reasons we don't schedule activities that first day, because people are coming in at varied times. We also say, the first flight out, don't schedule any flights to leave prior to 10 a.m. in the morning. Don't schedule an 8 a.m. flight, because we're not going to get people to the airport until at least 8 o'clock in the morning based on where we are when we leave the hotel. So if you want to take a 6 a.m. flight, you're on your own to get to the airport to fly home. But otherwise, we say flights after 10 a.m. would be on this particular tour.
That's great. Thanks.
Great. More questions? I see something lighting up there. Does anyone else have questions, Sherrie, before we go to the next tour? No? Okay. Okay, perfect. Those might have been the questions that already came. Okay, the next one I'm going to talk about is one of my favorite tours, and this is our New England Rails and Sails. New England, fall foliage, I mean, those two words go together, right? And we really like people to be able to experience the beauty of New England in the fall, but in a little bit more of a unique way, again, in talking about our unique North America. Now, this particular tour is leaving on October 8th. Again, as I mentioned, if that date doesn't work for you, we run this tour from the end of September through the second week of October. And the reason it is, again, limited is because of the fact that we go in the height of fall foliage. And as a general rule, fall foliage starts in the last week of September and runs through the first 2 weeks of October. There's about a 3-week window where the height of fall foliage comes into play, okay? And that's what we feel most of our travelers are going to New England for, is to see that beautiful fall foliage they've heard about. So our first tour doesn't depart until September 25th, and October 8th is actually our very last tour that we run, okay? 9 days, 8 nights, and this one includes 14 meals. And you'll see here, we start and end in Boston, and you will be seeing 6 states. We're going to say check those off your bucket list if you keep track of how many states you've been to, because you will start in Massachusetts, work your way up to Maine, through New Hampshire, into Vermont, down into Connecticut, through Rhode Island, and back around to fly home out of Boston. Sorry about that. That's six of those states off of your bucket list. And what we see is the height of fall foliage. Now, on this particular trip, we are going to experience 4 New England historic trains and 3 scenic boat cruises. So you're going to really get a chance to not only see the fall foliage by the road, but you're going to see it, for instance, from the water, where you can see it in a bigger, grander scale, as well as on the trains going through areas that you wouldn't be able to travel to because there are no roads in the area that we travel by on train. So we're going to start in Boston. You arrive into Boston. Again, flights will come in at varied times, so we don't have any activities scheduled during the day. But we're going to be staying in Boston at the Boston Park Plaza Hotel, right in Boston. So if you get in early, you can spend some time doing some touring on your own throughout Boston. Maybe you just want to do a little shopping, a little sightseeing, go down to the waterfront, whatever you'd like to do. We will not have any scheduled activities these days, but we will flights on your own that you arrive in time for a 6 p.m. welcome dinner with our tour manager. Of course, if you come in on our flights, on our schedule, we for sure will have you in by 6 p.m. So we're going to get a chance to meet everybody and have our welcome dinner here in the beautiful town of Boston. Now, the next morning we're going to get up and we're going to do a little bit of touring in Boston. We're going to see the beautiful Freedom Trail. This is, of course, the iconic area through Old Boston. So we're going to get a chance to see this. We're going to do it kind of on a driving tour, though we will get off and do some sightseeing here and there for picture opportunities. But things like the iconic sites, Paul Revere's house and things like that, we'll get a chance to see, as well as the beautiful public gardens here in Boston. Those are very iconic, and you'll start to see some of the beautiful trees changing right here in Boston as well. Now we'll leave Boston and we're going to drive up the coast of Maine, stopping in the iconic Kennebunkport. And a lot of people I know have heard of Kennebunkport. This is kind of a really kind of the rich and famous area of Maine, where a lot of the who's who of the area do their summer and fall visiting and touring in this area. It's a beautiful seaside town. We're going to end up at the end of the day in one of my favorite towns, Portland, Maine. Portland is, I actually travel there quite a bit. I used to work for a company years ago that's headquartered right down at the waterfront. And Portland literally sits on the water. It is the home of a lot of commercial fishing, and their downtown district has a lot of amazing restaurants, shopping, and just really great places right here on the waterfront. And the nice thing is, we've left the first evening there for dinner on your own. So you can go into town, you can go and have a beautiful lobster dinner if you want at one of the ports. Some of my favorite restaurants in Portland are the ones that look the most unassuming, down right on the waterfront. They have restaurants right on boats that don't sail. They have the best seafood, the freshest seafood. So you can't go wrong having a beautiful dinner on your own right here in Portland, Maine. Now, the next morning we're going to get up, and it's going to be our first day for some of our unique adventures. And we're going to have our first rail day, and this is at the Maine Narrow Gauge Railroad, and there's actually a museum there, so we're going to spend a little bit of time sightseeing in this beautiful museum before we actually get on the railway and take our first scenic railroad trip. And this is on the Maine Narrow Gauge Railroad. Narrow gauge is just to mean it has a very narrow rail. So they're not wide, they're a very narrow railway. And that is, this is actually founded back in Colorado, back in the 1800s, is where the type of railway that we're going to be on, the narrow gauge railway, was founded and then brought, of course, to the East Coast. So we'll get a chance to see this very iconic railway. This is a shorter one. It's only about a mile and a half that we're going to be actually on that particular railway, but it's a slow-moving railway, so you get a chance to see some beautiful sightseeing and some scenery. After we do that, we're going to go back out to the bay and back out to what we call Casco Bay, and we're going to do a scenic boat cruise on Casco Bay. So you're going to be overlooking all of the Portland Harbor area. We're going to get to see some of the beautiful iconic lighthouses along the bay, where we're going to be out on the ocean itself. So really some beautiful scenery. There's a couple little areas they call the Little and the Great Diamond Islands, two specific islands, and these are just dotted with cute little Victorian homes. You might see some of the local fishermen in their boats bringing in their day's haul. You'll see wild birds and maybe even some seals and some great wildlife. So just a beautiful area to see some of the iconic coast of New England on this particular boat ride. Okay, the next day we're going to go into the New Hampshire White Mountains. What a view. I mean, no matter where you look, you are going to see some of the most beautiful fall colors, just some stunning scenery on the beautiful White Mountains. We're going to drive through the White Mountains as we go to our second railway, and this is the North Conway Scenic Railroad. This goes through what the area they call the Mount Washington Valley, and we will take our second railway through the Mount Washington Valley countryside. So again, some of those beautiful scenes, get a chance to take some beautiful pictures of fall foliage here in this area. This train started back over 137 years ago through this particular area. And we will end up in North Conway in New Hampshire. And we'll actually give you some free time. There's some great little outlet stores and some great little shops in downtown North Conway. So we'll give you some free time to do some shopping in this beautiful area. And then, of course, we'll be staying here overnight. So you'll have some free time to have some dinner on your own at some of these great little restaurants in North Conway. The next day, we're going to travel the area known as the Kankamugus Scenic Byway. Sherrie, Charlie, have you guys been on the byway here? Have you traveled this area? Okay, well, it is iconic. Believe it or not, I traveled it not during fall foliage time, and it was just beautiful seeing just all the greenery around. I have not been on this highway during fall foliage, so it's one of those things I'm really excited to want to see. This is probably the most well-known roadway through this area of all the fall foliage trips. Pretty much any fall foliage trip you've been on in the area, they travel the Kankamugus Byway. It is going to be the yellows, the blues, the oranges, all of the beautiful hues that you see. And I'm going to show you an aerial shot of what that byway looks like. This is early in the season. This is when just a few of the trees start changing, but you can see just what it's like from the air on this iconic drive through these beautiful white mountains that you'll travel on, okay? We're gonna be crossing into Vermont through here and arriving at Keechee Gorge. And Keechee Gorge is in Vermont, and again, another one of those iconic things. We're gonna drive over the Keechee Gorge area, and we're going to be able to get right into these area in this area they call the Green Mountain Railroad. And we're going to board the Green Mountain Railroad, and we're going to go through the area along the Connecticut River. You'll see the covered bridges, you'll see some of the beautiful gorges along the way. So this will be our third train adventure through this particular area. Okay, the next day we're going to go through, I'm sorry, this is still on that day, again, showing you kind of the Connecticut River that we're going to be traveling along, and you can see where it goes right along the water, and yet all of the fall foliage on the side. Okay, the next morning we will leave Vermont and we will travel back into Massachusetts, where we will go through Stockbridge, Massachusetts. And one of the claims to fame of Stockbridge is the Norman Rockwell Museum. He, of course, is from this area, and a lot of his beautiful paintings were of the New England area. And we're gonna get a chance to go into the museum and see some of his original works in the museum that we'll get a chance to see. We'll also then spend some time in Stockbridge in this beautiful Berkshire town, and we're going to be able to do some sightseeing, some shopping. You'll see the original Yankee Candle Company is here, so we'll get a chance to do a little bit of shopping. Everybody wants to do shopping on our fall foliage tours at some of these great little places, so we will get a little bit of free time here in town before we arrive at the Mohegan Sun Resort. And this is where we're going to spend 2 nights on this tour at the beautiful Mohegan Sun Resort. And this is a casino resort, so if you've been itching to get a little casino time in, we will have 2 nights at this beautiful resort. If you do want to do some gambling here, you've got some time, but it is an absolute gorgeous resort. The next day we will get on our final train trip, and this is the Essex Steam Train. And this is, people always love this because traveling on a steam train gives you a lot different feel than if you're on an electric or a regular engine train. So the steam engine is coal-fired. And this is great because you get a chance to really experience this coal-fire locomotive that you'll be on, which is the Essex Steam Train. Of course, it's got a lot more hissing and the steam's gonna rise up. So it definitely gives you a little bit of a feel that we haven't gotten on the other 3 trains through the, that we've been on. Okay, then we will arrive into the Deep River Landing, where we will board our second boat trip, and this is the riverboat Becky Thatcher. So you'll get a chance to go on an actual riverboat, not just a big ship like we did on the Casco Bay where you were out on the ocean, but this is actually going to be a riverboat, and this is right on that beautiful Connecticut River. So we'll get a chance to do a little bit of that boat tour as well. And then we'll have our last evening back at the resort. You'll have free time for dinner. Again, if you want to do any little gambling, you can do so, or just relax around the beautiful resort. Our final full day will be in Plymouth, Massachusetts, and we'll get a chance, here we go, to go into the beautiful and see the beautiful Plymouth Rock, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But in Plymouth Rock, of course, one of the things known for here is their whale watching, and we will get a chance to go out. We will get a chance to go into the beautiful Cape Cod Bay on a whale watching excursion. So hopefully you'll get a chance to actually see some whales while you're on board. But this is an area known for their endangered right whales. And so hopefully we'll get a chance to see some of these beautiful humpback and finky whales that are in this particular area. There's another shot of the boat that we're on. Again, you can see there's going to be some inside where you could go inside if you'd rather, or go outside where you can be out and be able to get a chance to see the whales up close and personal. Okay, and then our final stop here, and again, you're going to be doing a boat ride through Cape Cod Bay, that's where we're going to be, is to see the beautiful Plymouth Rock. Let the rock, of course, that the Pilgrims arrived back in 1620 into this area. Now, I would love to be able to let you see this rock up close and personal like you're seeing here, but if you've ever been, you'll know that isn't the case. The rock is actually housed now because there were so many, believe it or not, vandals who would try to sit on the rock, rub the rock, take their pictures, chip a piece off the rock. That is now protected, and you actually go above it into this little area, and you can look down and see the rock from up above. You don't get the up close and personal that you used to, but again, this is what we have in our day and age. So get a chance to actually go into Plymouth and see the beautiful Plymouth Rock. And then this evening, again, our last night, we'll have a farewell dinner, get a chance to get your pictures, say goodbye to everybody that you met on board the tour, and exchange your emails and your photos before the next morning, where we're going back to Boston to do our flight home. And again, if you're arranging your own flight home, you would want to do so after 12 o'clock noon because of the time that we have to get back to the airport. And it is a busy time in Boston during fall foliage. So we want to get you back to the airport in plenty of time to clear through and get your flights home. Okay. As I mentioned at the beginning, we have tours that depart from the beginning of the tour time, which is September 25th, all the way through the end, which is October 8th. And I think one of the reasons that we picked this date is, people say that October is definitely a little bit of a better time to see the fall foliage. That's when it's really at its height. If you're looking for those kind of mixed greens and oranges and yellows, you're going to go at the beginning. And if you're looking for more of those deeper oranges and yellows and reds, you're going to go more toward the end of this time period, which is the October 8th departure. Price here is $3,419, $3,419. That includes your round trip air from Nashville. Again, if you want to do your own air, we can take some pricing off of that for your air, but this particular tour does include that air with a price of $3,419. I wish I could give you guys that nice savings on this tour, but on our fall foliage tours, our air included is the best deal we have on those. So on that other departure, we had the savings, but this one definitely is the $3,419 is your price for this particular tour. And just like the other tour, deposit is only $200 per person. Your final payment isn't due until next August, so you've got plenty of time to save up and make your final payment. And as I mentioned before, if you do want that insurance, you're welcome to look at ours. But again, Sherrie and Charlie have some great options for travel insurance to protect your tour, so talk to them about that as well. Okay, how about some additional questions on this tour? Sherrie, you're on mute.
Michele, what would be the airfare from Los Angeles or Palm Desert or San Diego in that area? Do you know what would the cost for the trip be from the West Coast?
You know what? I'm going to tell you, the great thing about this tour is it doesn't matter where you're flying from. That is your cost. On this particular tour, we have set that air price. We have added it into the tour up front. And we are allowing on this New England tour, because we don't have any other savings, we're doing that set price out of any gateway in the United States at $3,419.
That's great.
I'll tell you, if you're coming from California, you're going to have that same price, whether you're coming out of Nashville, whether you're coming out of California on this tour, it's the same no matter what gateway you use.
Well, Michele, I don't see any other questions that have come in. I think you pretty much answered everything as we went through.
I tried to keep it within an hour and left a little time.
And we did.
Also, I just want to mention too, these are just two of our great North America tours. I could go on probably a half an hour or more on every one of our tours. We have Colorado's historic trains. We have boat tours. We have tours all over the United States. We also have great international tours and river cruises. And I know, Sherrie, you and Charlie are promoting one of our great international tours next year, which is London and Paris. Talk about a great tour. That one does, I think it's 3 or maybe it's 4 nights. Gosh, I have to look at it again. That one does, I think, 4 nights maybe in London, and then we take the Channel over to Paris, where we do 3 nights. You're getting sightseeing in London and in Paris, and that tour is under $3,000, including air. So my gosh, if you're looking to get international next year and you want to see these 2 iconic cities, let Sherrie or Charlie know, and they can send you our information on that tour. We've also got some great river cruises, and the Douro is the one we're highlighting next year, which is in Portugal. 2 nights in Lisbon, and then we travel up to Porto and do a 7-night river cruise on the Douro, even including Salamanca, Spain on that one. So not just limited to the United States, but because we have so many great unique places in the US, those are the ones we wanted to highlight today. We have a great tour booklet. I'm just gonna flash it up here on the screen that we put together with Sherrie and Charlie and Just Cruisin Plus, that features the 2 domestic tours that I highlighted today, as well as those 2 international trips, the river cruise and the London Paris. And I know if you want to get a copy of this, just let Sherrie and Charlie know, and they can mail one out to you or send you an e-copy via email so you can take a look at these tours a little bit more in depth.
Well, guys, we thank Michele especially for being here today.
No problem. I was excited to do it.
Well, for getting us excited about these 2 trips. I think both of them, they're so unique, they're so different, and they're places that people are very interested in going to. And in this day and time when we're all dreaming now so that we can travel later, it's now time that we start dreaming now so we can experience later. And we would be happy to help you make any of these plans on either of these tours. You can call our office at 615-833-0922. That's 615-833-0922, and any of our travel and vacation counselors or Charlie and I will be more than happy to help you. We look forward to having a long relationship with Mayflower Tours and with Michele, and Michele knows that I knew the original owners of this company since back in the 70s, so I've known them forever. And this is it's a very well-established, very good tour operator, and we're just glad to have them as part of our portfolio. So, well,
thank you again, Sherrie, and thank you, Charlie. And just a last note, if I could, and to everybody still on, we're in a very changing industry right now. As you know, Sherrie and Charlie, honestly, of all of the people I work with, they have been the most helpful in updating everybody and keeping everybody abreast of all of these continual changing sections of our industry. And I just want to reassure everybody that while these changes are continuing to happen literally on a daily basis, Mayflower, as well as Just Cruisin Plus, are committed to continuing to keep up with what's going on in our industry and in our world. And we are always going to put the health and welfare of our travelers first and foremost on all of our tours, whether it be domestic or international. And we always will keep abreast of what is happening and continually look out for everything to keep you safe and happy on these wonderful tours that we operate.
Well, thank you again. Thank you, everybody who attended, and stay tuned. We'll have some more of these coming, and we'll let you know when we do. Thank you all.
Thanks so much. Be good.
Thank you. Be well, everyone. Bye.
Bye-bye.